Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing. Got my co-host Andrew here with my other co-host Jared down at the bottom. What's going on, man?
Not too much. How are you guys?
Doing okay. Before we do get started on this, I know everybody's really eager to finish up this divisional preview so we can get into our playoff show, which is going to be next week. So this is going to be our last division that we do before the season starts, which is awesome because that just means we're less than a week away from football starting. And it's going to be the AFC East show we're going to be doing today. So if you are an AFC East fan, you're going to love this show. But before we do get started, I do want to touch on something that's kind of been dear to me, basically for the last few years, but even more so now, this last week. It's not going to really get into too many specifics, but this month is International Suicide Prevention Month, which is a big thing for me as well. And just want to let everybody know that if you are going through something, regardless of what it is, if you're feeling alone, you're not alone. There are, people that will help. Even if you don't even know us, you can always message one of us three. We will help any way we can. And if you are thinking, that you want, all this to be over, just make sure that you reach out. There's the National Suicide Prevention Line is 1-800-273-8255. That is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text the word home to 741-741. And that's a free 24-hour support line that, you can get the help that you need. But just remember, you're not alone. And if you ever feel like that, never hesitate to reach out. Even if, like I said, even if it's just to us, even if you don't know us, all three of us will do anything we can, to talk to you. But I just wanted to get that out there because, it's a big thing for me. And like I said, I'm not going to go into too many specifics, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. So now that that's out of the way, we can finally get on to some football. And we all know how much we're ready for the season to start. So we will start with this AFC East preview. We got the Bills, the Jets, the Mac Jones led Patriots, and the Miami Dolphins. And this is actually shaping up to be one of the more interesting divisions in football. I mean, really, like, there's not an awful team. I mean, you might say the Jets might be the worst team because they're rebuilding, but even then, like, Zach Wilson's looked great this preseason. So we'll get into each team here, but we want to start at the top. Like we always do every show. We want to go in order of how they finished last season and then let you know what we think. So I'm going to go ahead, pass the buck off to Andrew here for the Buffalo Bills, the division winning Buffalo Bills last year.
I'm surprised. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm going to save it for Sunday, but I'm kind of surprised you didn't want to start off by talking about them. And I'll let everybody follow up on Sunday and see why I'm surprised you weren't going to lead off the show with the Bills. But I'll gladly talk about them though, because they got one of my favorite players in the league on their team. So, I mean, it's this team to me is just all about was last year a fluke year for Josh Allen or not. It's been extremely rare to see somebody go from what Josh Allen was 2 years ago to what he was last year, in terms of his accuracy and just how efficient of a passer he was. And so, me personally, I'm in. I don't think that last year was a fluke year. I think that there were some clear signs of improvement. I think that that's something that's going to stick. So I'm in on the Bills. I've got them winning the division again this year, led behind another huge Josh Allen season. So the only thing that concerns me, not having those Josh Allen's concerns really for the most part is the running game. I think they'll be just fine depending on Josh Allen through the regular season and his arm and what he can do with his legs. But once you get into the playoffs, I do think it is important to have some type of running game. And Zach Moss and Devin Singletary have not shown me anything to believe that their running game is going to improve this year. based on what they did last year and the small sample that we've had from the preseason and training camp and things like that this year. So that's what scares me in the long run for this team. I think they're going to be a great regular season team. I think they'll, be one of probably the 3 best teams in the AFC this year. And I love the receiving core. I consider Emmanuel Sanders an upgrade from what they had in John Brown last year. You put him, on the outside across from Stephon Diggs. You've got Cole Beasley, and you still got Gabriel Davis, who's continuing to improve. I think he's a great young receiver as well. So I think they have 4 really, really talented receivers to go along with Josh Allen and the damage that he's going to do. And I love everything on the defense on the back end. The secondary, both the corners and the safeties, I think are loaded in that position. I have a little bit more questions up front, but I love everything they have going on the back end. So yeah, I mean, long story short, I love this team. I think that they're in for another big year led by Josh Allen. And I think Josh Allen will be firmly in the MVP discussion this year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts here in just a second. I want to go ahead and pass it off to Jared as well, so we can get his thoughts on how the Buffalo Bills are looking this year to him.
Yeah, Drew pretty much said the only concern with Buffalo is their running game. They have a joint backfield committee, and neither one of the guys seem to produce in the red zone. Josh Allen actually was their red zone running back throughout most of the season last year. Josh Allen's a stud, man, and like Drew said, also that receiving core only upgraded with Emmanuel Sanders over John Brown. Emmanuel Sanders can get open. Emmanuel Sanders can play in the slot. Emmanuel Sanders can stretch the field. He can do everything. They're a very talented team, and they're going to be tough at home. They're going to be really tough. Bills Mafia is pumped, and they have all reasons to be. They're easily my favorite in the East as well.
Yeah. So I could gush, and I will this coming up, the next podcast for sure about the Buffalo Bills. I love Buffalo this year. I love everything about Buffalo. Even I think the running game can be effective enough in spurts to kind of alleviate some of those issues. I still like Zach Moss. He was injured last year a lot. So, as long as he can stay healthy, I think he can produce, not in a necessarily fantasy relevant role, but more in a real life situation, especially in the red zone. I think he's a better option in there for them. But yeah, that's that. I mean, the running game's the only question. I do like the offensive line. Obviously, you've already touched on the weapons. I think the weapons are fantastic. There's some questions at the tight end spot a little bit as well. But I think anybody with Josh Allen, especially the way that Josh Allen's looked this preseason, I think they can be productive. He's looked absolutely fantastic. And that was my biggest thing going into this year with Josh Allen was it just a 1-year type of thing? And then, he comes back down to earth this year. I'm curious about that, but I don't think it was a fluke. I think this guy, he looked like a completely different quarterback. Even watching him in the preseason, his footwork was phenomenal. The way he squares his shoulders up, uses that lower body for accuracy. I mean, his mechanics are completely different. You still have the athleticism. He's got another year with Brian Daboll, who's turned out to be one of the best coaching hires. I don't know how that guy does not have a head coaching job this last year. That's absolutely insane. But mark my words, if there's another successful run here in Buffalo, which I think there will be a highly successful run, that guy's a head coach next year. So the defense, I know you've already, touched on the secondary as well. Linebackers are kind of interesting. I'm not so much as concerned about the pass rush. I think for me, AJ Epineza is in for a massive, almost Josh Allen-like pass rushing increase. I think by the end of the year, we're going to talk about this guy as a top 10 edge presence in the National Football League. I'm that high on his talent. Drafted Gregory Rousseau as well out of Miami in the first round. Carlos Basham in the second round. They went pass rusher. And we all like Boogie Basham as well. F.A. Obata, they got a free agency he's had an 11.2 pressure rate in 2020, which I know it doesn't sound like a big number, but in terms of creating pressure, 11.2 is actually a really good number. So I'm interested to see that. And then, of course, Jerry Hughes as well. he finished 5th in the NFL in pressure percentage last year. So he's a little bit older, but they have a veteran at that position. They have some really talented young guys ready to take that next step. So yeah, I'm not too worried about their pass rush for me, but the main thing for this team is just Josh Allen. And spoiler alert for Bills fans, just to give you a preview of next week, Josh Allen is my most valuable player this year. I'm not going to give too much away, but I think Josh Allen's the MVP of the National Football League this coming up season, and that should give you an indication of what kind of season I think the Bills are about to have. So yeah, they're clearly my divisional favorites in this round, and I think everybody else is going to be playing catch up, as far as that goes. So that will, we'll save more of the Bills love. And look, if there's any fan base outside of Cleveland that is passionate, and the Raiders too. So Raiders are a little like scary passionate, but the Bills fans, dude, I love Buffalo Bills fans. I love those fans. So yeah, I'm excited to talk next week more about the Bills, but we'll move on because we still have 3 other teams in this division. And
hey, a couple quick notes real quick before we move
yeah,
on. Though.
Sure.
So, one, I completely agree. I think that one of the biggest head scratchers of the offseason was the fact that Brian Dabble wasn't a head coach. I think him and Eric Bieniemy were the two that was obvious, like, why are these guys not head coaches yet? So I agree with that. And I think both of those guys will be head coaches next year. The other thing was you brought up the tight end room, which I agree has been a concern, but I do want to bring up that Dawson Knox is coming into year 3. And if you follow breakout years for tight ends, the 3rd year is usually the one. And he does have the athletic traits that give you the idea that he could possibly fit that mold. Whether that comes to fruition or not remains to be seen, but I do think he's somebody to keep an eye on this year and could just be another weapon to add to the arsenal for Josh Allen. So just something else I wanted to bring up before we moved on.
Yeah. So now we will move on. I completely agree with everything you said there. So now we will move on to the team that finished 2nd in the division and just missed the playoffs last year, and that's the Miami Dolphins. So another year of Tua, Brian Flores, who I think is one of the better younger coaches in the NFL. And we'll see. There's been a lot of change on that roster this year. It's not the same team as it was last year. There's a lot of change defensively as well, and we all know what a great defensive team they were. So, Jared, what do you think about the Dolphins this year?
I think they're going to take a step backwards. There was a lot of problems I had with Miami last year. I think letting Fitzpatrick leave was a good thing. It is Tua's team now. He has a full year. The in and out weeks are over with. This is his time to shine. I think he actually got more talent around him offensively. I do worry about the defense. They've lost some key players along the way. The offensive line is solid, but it's not great. It's, I would say, good in my opinion. And I think that division has gotten tougher. So I know they were 1 game away from making the playoffs last year, but I think the Jets are better than what they were last year. We talked at the very beginning of the show. New England's definitely going to be better than what they were last year. So you're looking at, and then they play Buffalo twice a year. So those 3 teams are going to play twice. And there's a good realistic shot that they split or go 0-2 against some of those teams. So I'm not high on Miami this year. I definitely see them taking it back season.
I actually tend to agree. I think Miami's going to take a step backwards this year. I don't think it's going to be a big step backwards, but I think it's going to be, enough. I don't think they're winning double-digit games again. So, it's not necessarily anything Miami did wrong. Some of their defensive moves were a little bit of a head scratcher to me, like getting rid of some of the guys they brought in, like Kyle Van Noy and some of those leaders, in those type of positions on the defense is, it worries me a little bit, but obviously the secondary is one of the better secondaries in the league. Xavier Howard's one of the best cornerbacks in the league as well. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to see more from Tua, and I know he's looked really good in practice. He's looked really good in the preseason as well, but I'm still not sold on him as being the franchise guy there. Their weapons, I think, are good. I'm not concerned with the running game. Even though they don't have that big name back, I think they have 2 or 3 guys that they can get some decent production out of. We'll see what happens with Miles Gaskin, if he can actually continue the success he had last year late in the year. And obviously, to me, the best unit on this team is the wide receiver position. They're stacked at wide receiver, and
They
it's a
are.
very, very high ceiling group as well. Will Fuller, whenever he does play, he always produces like one of the best receivers in the National Football League. Whenever he's on the field, that's very rare. And of course, I believe he's going. Is the suspension this year that he's serving?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to miss week 1, and then he'll
Yeah.
be back week 2.
Okay, so yeah, he's already down 1 week, so we'll see. Hopefully, he can stay healthy, and it makes you question how much of his performance were because he got busted with performance-enhancing substances last year, and coincidentally, it was the first year that he was actually healthy. So, I mean, we'll see if that plays a role or not. But I love Jalen Waddell. I thought that was a good pick. Devontae Parker's really decent, and you know I just think Mike
Gesicki.
Gesicki's really good. What'd you say?
Oh, Gasecki. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was to say I think Gesicki he's more of a wide receiver to me than he is a tight end. But yeah, the weapons there are very indicative of them trying to help Tua as much as they can. But like I said, I'm still not sold on him. If he does, I mean, he's basically to me going to have to take that next step for this team to have success, because I don't think the defense is going to be as good as it was last year. I mean, I still think they're, middle of the road. I think they're probably more along the lines of, in the 12 to 15 range on defense this year, but that's a big difference from a top 10 defense. And I think Tua is going to need to take that next step for it to have success. And I'm just not sold on him enough as a player to carry that franchise. So maybe I'll be proven wrong, but yeah, I think the Dolphins take a step back. Like I said, I don't think it's a big step back. You're going from 10 wins to maybe 7 or 8. So it just might be a couple games, but in a division where all the teams are getting better, and especially in a loaded AFC conference, a couple games can make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm figuring out here that I think I'm the highest of the group on Tua. And I mean, that's not a very high bar, but because I'm honestly not all that high on him either. But I have started to come around the last month or so on the possibility of him taking a step forward, in a sense of they have a full off season of him being the guy in the room, like Jared pointed out, which I think is a big thing for a young quarterback to have that confidence. He's not looking over his shoulder thinking, if I screw up in the first half, I'm coming out for Fitzmagic in the second half, or, if I screw up this week, next week I might be sitting, even though I just got the starting job 2 weeks ago. For him not to have that over his shoulder and to be able to really take the reins of the offense, I do think will help him. And the fact that what you guys pointed out about him having a much improved wide receiver room. If you look at the guys that he was throwing the ball to last year compared to what he has this year, I think that is going to make a big difference for him, and just having another full year in the offense. Now, that being said, I don't think he's like a top 5 NFL quarterback in the making or anything like that. I'm not that high on Tua. I think he could be a above average game manager, basically, is how I feel about what his role could be. And I don't know if the other side of the ball is good enough for that to be a winning formula, enough for them to make the playoffs, which is what whenever we talked about the AFC West, I told you that deciding between second place and third place in that division, and then deciding between second place and third place in this division, were probably the 2 hardest choices I was having to make whenever I was looking at the divisions. And I ended up coming down and having Miami third in the division. So, I think I essentially agree with both you guys that I think that they will take a slight step back, but I do think Tua is going to surprise a lot of people, because I think he's went from way up here to, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about tank for Tua. It feels like 5 years, 6 years ago now. He went from that to kind of being left for dead for the most part. And so I think he will surprise some people this year, but I would have Me personally, I would have liked to see them grab Devontae Smith instead of Jalen Waddle. I was higher on Smith than I was Waddle personally, but I love Waddle too. I think he's going to be a great player, and I think him and Will Fuller mirror each other a lot. So, you know, 1 year Will Fuller there, and then Will Fuller's probably out the door. And then I think Waddle will have I don't know how big of a year he'll have this year, but I think, you know, year 2 moving forward, I think he'll be, you know, a huge part of that offense. But defensive wise, you know, you mentioned the cornerback room. Outside of that, and then outside of like Christian Wilkins, you know, that there are a lot of question marks for me on the defensive side of the ball, and that was really what the issue came down. It was weird with how good this team was on defense last year. It's weird saying that the defense was the point that had me picking them finishing 3rd instead of 2nd, but that really is what it came down to. And I think, you know, we'll talk about the Patriots next, but just whenever I sit down and looked at their roster and saw all the players that weren't there because of the COVID opt-outs and things like that last year, and the success that they still managed to have even with the depleted roster they had, and then the guys that they're getting back, that was kind of the tiebreaker for me essentially, and what had Miami finishing 3rd and the team we're about to talk about finishing 2nd. So there's my little segue.
Yeah, so it seems like we're all kind of consensus on Miami finishing 3rd in the division. I think all 3 of us are probably at that same spot. So now we will go on to the team that did finish 3rd last year in the division. And to me, this is the most interesting team, not only in this division. I think this might be one of the most interesting teams to look for in the whole National Football League next year. And that's the New England Patriots. So obviously we know last year, first year without Brady, you know, and not only Brady, but they had a lot of COVID opt-outs on defense, and, you know, offensive line as well. There was, you know, some really big guys for that team that did not play all last year. We know Cam Newton only throwing 8 touchdowns last year to 10 interceptions. Yeah, he was really good rushing in the red zone, but outside of that, he was not a very successful quarterback when it comes to throwing the ball and getting those options, the ball. And they still won 7 games. So to me, that's it. You know, everybody wants to talk about, you know, Bill Belichick being a failure without Brady last year. And yes, Brady did win the Super Bowl. Obviously, he got that. I thought last year, like I said, with all the opt-outs and on top of that, having a quarterback that only throws for 8 touchdowns on the season, you're having most teams, like you're talking about most teams in that situation, you know, who are we picking first in the draft, you know? And here he is, you know, winning 7 games with that roster. To me, like that's an incredible coaching accomplishment, with how depleted that roster was and how bad for a majority of the year Cam Newton actually looked back there throwing. But Cam Newton's gone, released this week, some actually relatively big, you know, cut day news. And this is now Mac Jones' teams. And let me be the first to be on this. I was not a huge Mac Jones guy coming off. I was actually, him and the other team we're going to talk about next were my 2 lowest rated quarterbacks in the draft. I had, you know, obviously Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields, then Trey Lance, and then I had Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. You know who the 2 best quarterbacks have been so far? You know, by metric numbers in the preseason and just by the eye test as well. I mean, not only looking, you know, at the numbers, but actually looking at the games, watching them play. The 2 best quarterbacks have been the 2 quarterbacks that I like the least. So, yeah, to me, Mac Jones, this is, I know we've talked about this a few times, me and Andrew have on here. Coaching matters in the NFL, and getting a player that fits what your team is looking for, that you can run an offense through, is more, to me, it's more important than the talent level of the quarterback itself, because you can have, I mean, how many years have we seen, you know, how many talented quarterbacks we've had in the NFL that have not been successful because they've had bad coaching? I mean, even Josh Allen in this division, you know, Brian Daboll getting there was the best thing that happened to Josh Allen's career. And so to me, this is the perfect I mean, the absolute perfect fit for quarterback, offensive coordinator, offense. This team, to me, I think New England Patriots are a playoff team this year. I think they're the sixth. I believe I had them as the sixth seed, fifth or sixth seed. I can't remember. We'll have to look next week in our playoff preview. But Mac Jones has looked fantastic. If anything, and I know this is blasphemous, you don't want to say this. If you would have put the number 12 on the back of Mac Jones jersey this preseason, I would have thought I was watching a 2012, 2013 New England Patriots game. You know, accurate, knows, like, he knows where he's going with the ball before that ball snapped. And having Josh McDaniels there, say what you want about Josh McDaniels as a head coach, say what you want as a person, which, I mean, we don't know him personally, but as a Colts fan, the guy's a fucking snake. But yeah, say what you want. The guy's a great offensive coordinator. And I think having somebody that can run that offense the way they want it ran, elite level offensive line. I think they have one of the top 5 offensive line units in the National Football League. A really good running game as well. I think Ramondre Stevenson could be a factor as well. I thought that was a good draft pick for them. Damian Harris is ready to take that next step as a lead back in an offense. I think that could be interesting. And they still have James White there as well. And they never focus on one guy. There's multiple guys that can beat you in multiple ways. Went out and signed Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, the big free agent signings that we talked about. And then I really like Jacoby Myers as well. I think Jacoby Myers is a really good receiving option for that squad. Now, outside of Jacoby Myers, there are some question marks there, especially with N'Keal Harry. We'll see what happens. But this is an offense, and we've seen it operate for years and years and years without elite level wide receivers. They just know how to scheme guys open, and they need a quarterback that makes quick decisions and is accurate and can move in the pocket, can navigate a pocket. I don't know if there's a single quarterback that's looked better. Not only, are we talking about rookies? I don't know if there's a single quarterback that has looked better in general this preseason, watching them at navigating a pocket and knowing where he's going with the ball than Mac Jones has looked. He's a rookie. I don't think he's going to be one of these guys that goes out there and tosses 40, 50 touchdowns, but I don't think he has to be. They want somebody to manage the game and put them in positions to be successful. And that's just on the offense side of the ball. Obviously, we know Bill Belichick, one of the greatest defensive minds that's ever come through the National Football League, on top of, to me, being the greatest head coach in general that's ever played football, or not played, but has coached it. To me, he's the greatest coach of all time. But you can't, you might be able to argue that now with the Brady thing. We're not going to get into all of that. But outside of that, he's still one of the greatest defensive coaches, and possibly the greatest defensive coach that has ever coached in the National Football League. They got a lot of guys back this year on defense. No, they did. We'll see what happens with the Stephon Gilmore, thing. That's going to be a big part of that for them. I know he's already out for at least 6 weeks, but JC Jackson, I think, is a fantastic cornerback as well. I think he can step into that cornerback one role for that team. And I think they'll be just fine, honestly. And then, just the rest of that defense, I've never really had questions about a Bill Belichick defense, as long as they have the personnel that he looks for. And this year, I think they have really good personnel there. So I expect this to be a top 10 defense in the National Football League. They have an elite offensive line, a good running game, and a smart quarterback, and some really elite tight end options as well. I think Jonnu Smith could be a huge factor this year, even more so than Hunter Henry. I know Hunter Henry got the big money. He's the big name. I think Jonnu Smith's going to be the better option out of the two, just because his ability to create after the catch is elite level for a tight end. So, yeah, I have this team winning double-digit games, and I think they're going to make the playoffs as well. So I don't think they're going to win the division, and that's no fault of theirs because I still really like them. But, yeah, that's my kind of whole spiel there on the New England Patriots. And to me, I told Andrew, like, if there's one team I could just see winning a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback, it's probably damn Bill Belichick. So he got a clone, basically, of what he wants the quarterback position to be. So we'll see here before we get a little more blasphemous in here. I'll go ahead and let Andrew take over because I see him, the wheels are turning. I see him up there ready to talk. So I know you love shitting on Bill Belichick as much as you can. So go ahead and take this one over.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I agree that I think Bill Belichick is one of the best head coaches in NFL history, possibly the best. You know, especially whenever he has his camera crew rolling, there's nobody better. So, no, but I mean, in all seriousness, I do think he's a great head coach. But as a still very bitter Rams fan, I did thoroughly enjoy watching Tom Brady win a Super Bowl and Bill Belichick struggle. And I don't care how bad the quarterback play was. I enjoyed every bit of it. And I will use that to my advantage as long as I can. But in all seriousness, I think my fun's over because I do think they're going to be a good team this year. I do have a little bit more worries about the wide receiver position because, while you brought up that they've had a history of being lackluster at that position in the past and still made it work. And while I do think part of that is scheming guys open, the other part of that is you had what was in my mind the greatest quarterback of all time throwing the balls to
it's the system.
Yeah. Somehow, some way that system carried its way onto Tampa without Bill Belichick and won a Super Bowl. I don't know how that worked, but I think Mac Jones is going to be good. I do. He was really impressed me. I was the lowest out of the 5 first-round quarterbacks on him. I had, and like you, the same as you, I had, the 2 guys we're going to talk about 4th and 5th. I just had Wilson 4th and Jones 5th. But I don't think, I think Mac Jones couldn't have landed in a better spot for him in terms of the coach, the system. I mean, it just seemed like I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look to be certain, but I'm almost positive I had Mac Jones going to this team whenever we were doing our NFL mock drafts. Like it just seemed it was like Najee Harris to the Steelers. It just seemed too obvious of a good fit for it not to happen, assuming the guy was still going to be on the board. But the main thing for me is just the pieces that they're getting back on the defense and then the running game. They've got a great offensive line. They've got 2 great running backs that can carry the ball, another one that can catch the ball, and a defense that can hold leads, once the offense gets it. One of the big things for me this offseason, I thought Christian Barmore was a 1st-round NFL draft player, ended up falling to the 2nd to the Patriots because of course he did.
Of course.
So I thought that was a great addition to what is already improved defense. So, I'm on board with the top 10 defense prediction. I could definitely see that. And I actually ended up holding these guys out of the playoffs. It was between I was getting ready for the playoff primer. I was between the Pats, the Chargers, and the Steelers for my final playoff spot. And I'm not going to say who I went with, but I will just say the Patriots did not make the cut. So that leaves you with 2 teams. They could have possibly been there, but it was very close though. I think that those 3 teams were right there. And if I had to pick a team that's going to prove me wrong and make me look bad, it would be this one. And I guess Bill Belichick probably owes me that for how much I went on a shit show ride and had fun with him last year, even though I know it wasn't exactly his fault that they had the season they did, even though, to your point, it was an impressive season for what they had to deal with. But yeah, no, I do think this is going to be a much improved team. I do have them finishing 2nd in the division, but I do have them just barely missing the playoffs.
Yeah. So Jared, go ahead.
They're definitely 2nd place in this division. And I know you guys have touched on the wide receiver position. I think they're better than what they've been in the last 3 years of wide receiver. I think Nelson Aguilar is a big addition to that team that not a lot of people will talk about. He did some really good things for the Raiders last year. Like he actually stretched the field quite a bit for them. Offensive line is still really good. My thing is, where's this team been at for Tom Brady the last 2 seasons before this? Like Brady would win. He would have won Super Bowl with this team. Like this team, if it stays together, like which I don't see happening, Mac Jones in year 3 would win a Super Bowl with this team. Like I think they're balanced enough to where he doesn't have to do too much. And they're getting all these guys back from defense that they didn't have last year. Man, they're sneaky. And this whole division is so much different. Like if you look at like this is a completely different Patriots team altogether this season. Miami's going to be a different team. Buffalo is the only team that's the same, and that's why I think they're going to win the division. But New England's going to be right there. It could come down to the last week to see who wins that division. I think they're going to be that good.
Yeah, I can't argue that. So it seems like we're all really a lot higher on New England. Drew, of course, a little bit clouded with the Belichick hate, but hey,
Oh,
we're
I had a ticket on that train too, Drew. I love seeing Brady win that Super Bowl.
I did too. Look, I was actually before
Tampa
we
Tom is awesome, man. It's been so much fun just
yeah.
seeing him down there having fun. Like Tampa Tom is the shit.
Yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah.
great.
Did you
He is
see? Did
fantastic.
you see the new video he had come? Well, one. Did you see the Mike Rabel
The,
video?
the
That he
him
had?
and Vrabel,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
that was
hilarious.
so funny.
But then on top of that, he had a new video come out today talking about how defensive players have been
Oh,
so limited.
they're catering to
That,
the
yeah,
offense.
yeah, because of the way it's
Like
basically
defensive players are getting penalized for
for
offensive
yeah
players'
for quarter
mistakes.
for quarterbacks mistakes. He said it's the quarterback play is basically going downhill because of the way that they cater to, like, they don't have to basically do as much because they're so protected by the league, and
Right.
it's really affecting the play. So it's interesting. I really love seeing Brady. I was actually talking the other day with my mom. We were on the phone, and I was telling her, like, all these, outside of pretty much Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, those are the only two guys from my generation of football left that's still playing, in the NFL. And everybody else that is younger, like, you're watching. I was like, the Colts quarterback is a year older than my youngest sibling. And to me, that's just weird. Like, and all these guys, you got guys now coming into the draft, and they were born in the year 2000, and
Yeah.
you're just like, man, like, it's passing you by. And I said, if outside of Aaron Rodgers, who we're all three a little bit closer to in age than Tom Brady, of course, but outside of him, like, Tom Brady's the last one. Like, it's at that position, and maybe some older guys on the offensive line and stuff, like Whitworth and all that. But I mean,
Well, being the senior host and being the oldest here,
Yeah.
actually I like seeing Brady win even more, because this old dude just beat a bunch of young people.
Yeah, well, that's
And
what I'm saying is, like,
and then
like,
everybody is already, Mahomes is great, but he's
but
not.
I mean, it's
Tom
the
Brady.
same thing. It's the LeBron Jordan argument, where they're looking for the next Tom Brady, and they just want to crown somebody
Good luck.
before.
I
Yeah,
mean-
yeah, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I don't care. You could sit here and argue with me till you're blue in the face. You're not.
Brady's the closest thing to Michael Jordan. really.
Brady's, to me, has surpassed Michael Jordan. I think
He
Tom
could
Brady's
have.
the greatest athlete in American sports history. Outside of Michael Phelps, I think Michael Phelps and Tom Brady are the two greatest athletes in sports history in the United States. That is. But that's my original point. What we were saying, I was like, man, like, these are the last guys for my generation. So they're the ones I want to root for. And it's so weird, me, like, being a Colts fan. If the Colts are out of it, I'm going to root for Tampa. I will root for Tom Brady to win another Super Bowl. I hope he wins number 8 this year. I want to see it just completely pushed. I don't think there's anybody, especially in today's day and age, like, winning 7 Super Bowls is already out of reach for anybody, to me. But even then, if the Colts are out of it, like, you can go ahead and you can chalk me up to wanting Tom Brady to win another one. I'll be rooting for him all season. So it's just interesting to me. Like, I told her, after years and years of hate, then it became respect, and now it's almost like
You really like the guy.
I appreciate him, like,
Mhm.
on such a deeper level. I appreciate what I'm watching, because I know that, I don't know, we've actually had this conversation on a previous podcast.
Mhm.
Like, once it's gone, like, it's gone forever. Like, this is what he has done in the National Football League will never be replicated. So once it's done, it's done.
You touched on it with Jordan. It's not happened.
Yeah,
since
it's never happened.
and it's not going to.
No,
this is it, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you might have guys like, eventually there's going to be somebody that comes along, and they might win 6 rings, or they might do this. But the way the game's played today too, on top of the players wanting to team up and join all one or two teams in the NBA. I'm not gonna make this an NBA show because I think the NBA is a shit show. But yeah, I mean it's so hard to replicate what Tom Brady has done. I don't think it's ever gonna be done again. And you're to go back to Drew's point. I love seeing him open up more and be more of
It's really cool
himself.
seeing him be so transparent.
Yeah,
now that he's
like I
down
think
there
this
and
is
feels
more
like
of
he can be
himself. Yeah,
Yep.
than he was in New England, and it's been really nice. So yeah, I'll be rooting for Tom Brady, but we have another team to get to, and that is the New York Jets, finally out from the Adam Gase experience. So addition by subtraction, they're going to be a better team just by that. Like they don't have to do anything else. But they did do other things. I think this is an interesting. They've been really snake bitten by major injury at key positions this preseason as well. It seems like every time they sign a pass rusher, the guy goes down for the season. And the Carl Lawson thing was extremely unfortunate because I think he was going to be a fantastic addition to that roster. But the big addition to the roster, of course, is number 2 overall pick, Zach Wilson. Them shipping Sam Darnold off after that experience for the last 3 years. We'll see, what happens in Carolina, whether it truly is the Adam Gase effect. Spoiler, it is. But yeah, Zach Wilson is just another one of these quarterbacks. Actually, you could really say all three. So yeah, if you're a Dolphins fan, you can completely ignore me on the Tua take because I didn't like Josh Allen. I didn't like Mac Jones. I didn't like Zach Wilson. And all three of them look like fantastic quarterbacks. So yeah, Tua is probably in to be a franchise quarterback here within the next 3 or 4 months. But yeah, Zach Wilson, Tony Romo even said it the other day. He said, we will be talking about him as a top 5 level quarterback by the end of the season. And in all honesty, as long as his decision-making is on point in that offense, I don't disagree on it. Like I think he'll be better than Trevor Lawrence is at this point because just some of the things that I've seen that and I don't know, maybe I was discounting it because he made some of these throws in college, and maybe I was discounting it because the level of competition. And when he finally did face some competition in college, he did not look as good. And I think that played a big role in my evaluation for him. But the arm talent is evident. To me, he has probably the best arm talent out of any quarterback in this draft. The way he throws the ball, the way he's able to fit the ball into tight windows, whether he's on the move, whether he's in the pocket, whether it's 35, 40 yards down the field, whether it's 5 yards down the field, it does not matter. There is not an inch of grass on the field that Zach Wilson cannot place a football. So now it is up to the Jets, which is, just saying that sentence in general, it is up to the Jets to develop that talent and to make him a successful quarterback. And this is a completely different Jets team. This is a completely different Jets roster. You have LaFleur there running the offense, which has looked great. There are a lot of question marks for me on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, which I know Drew wants to touch on, so I'll leave that to him. But even the running game's got question marks. The offensive line, outside of a few spots there on the offensive line, still has some question marks, especially there on the interior. I'm kind of interested to see. One place I do not have question marks, though, is the wide receiver corps. I love the Elijah Moore pick. I think Elijah Moore is going to be the best wide receiver out of this entire draft. I think you're about to see an Odell level rookie season out of Elijah Moore. That's how high of a talent I am on him. Love Elijah Moore. Was really, really, really mad that I didn't get him in any of our drafts in fantasy because I'm that high on him as a talent. I think we're going to be talking about this guy as being the next best young wide receiver, right there along with guys like Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown. And then on top of that, they added Corey Davis, who has looked like just a target monster this preseason as well. He could be in for a massive season as well. So, and then, the tight end room, we'll see. They just traded Chris Herndon because I don't know if they're expecting Croft to make a bigger jump or not. He's looked decent in the preseason, so we'll see what happens with that. But there's still some question marks that I don't think this team is going to be competitive this year. I think they're still probably another year or two away from having a competitive roster. But I really like the direction they're headed in, and this could be one of these divisions that rivals almost the NFC North in the near future, where you can literally have, 3 to 4, all 4 teams in this division compete for the playoffs almost. And especially with that added spot like this, I could see this division being the first division to ever have 4 playoff teams if Tua hits, with the division winner and then the 3 wild card spots. It's not out of the question. So we'll see if the Jets can, take that next step. I'm not going to get too much in depth on the Jets, but if you are a Jets fan and you're listening to this, I think you hit a home run on the Zach Wilson pick. I'm already going to go ahead and admit I was wrong on that, because like I said, I don't know if it was just the talent level that I discounted, but yeah, he's looked fantastic. And I know also you're not supposed to do the whole like preseason reaction tape, but it's not so much as the preseason production as much as it is the eye test with Zach Wilson. Just me watching him play football, watching the way the ball comes out of his hand and the throws that he's made this preseason, I don't see how there's any way outside of a catastrophic event that he's not a successful NFL quarterback. So that's just my take on the Bill, or not the Bills, but the Jets. And I think Fireman Ed is gonna be in for a good season here in the next 2-3 years. I think that Jets fan base is going to be really rocking and rolling here in about 3 years. So, Drew, I know you wanted to touch on the secondary. You talked about it earlier when we were off here, but I'm going to go ahead and let you take the Jets.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's probably my biggest concern for this team. Honestly, I thought they were already probably one of, if not the worst, cornerback rooms in the league, and then they let go of arguably their best corner last year in Bless Austin, which, I mean, not a huge loss for most teams, but for a team that has a secondary this bad, could be. But my concerns with the secondary stops at the cornerback position. I really like their safety room. Marcus May, obviously. Now, the big thing with him is he's playing on a franchise tag. He's already in a contract dispute. I don't know how that works out, but assuming he's on the field, he's a great safety. And I like the fact that they brought LaMarcus Joyner in. I think that he was incredibly misused in Oakland, trying to use him as like a mix of a nickel corner safety hybrid type of thing, where I think he is best served just playing as a straight up safety. And so if the Jets cornerback room is so bare that I don't, they might end up making the same mistake. I don't know. We'll see. And then obviously I still like Quentin Williams, but the defense is, is the concerning part for me. And I'm not quite ready to concede on my Zach Wilson take yet. I had him as the 4th best quarterback in this draft class, and I still think that could very well be the case. That's not a knock on Zach Wilson. I just think what could end up happening is that this is just an extremely loaded quarterback class, which was kind of what the thought was coming into the draft anyway. It's just Zach Wilson has impressed me to where I think the gap between 3 and 4 is smaller now in my mind than it was at the day of the draft. Between 3 for me was Fields and 4 was Zach Wilson. But the gap, I had 3 guys I liked a lot, and then 2 guys that I thought were first round players, but I wasn't as high on them as the top 3. And I will say at least Zach Wilson has shrunk that gap between him and Fields, but I still think it could end up being to where I had it Lawrence, Lance, Fields, Wilson, Mac Jones, and I'm not going to waver off that just yet. I'm going to have to see more before I take that L on that one. But I've taken a lot of L's on quarterbacks in drafts over the past few years, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think that they're heading in the right direction. I like the Elijah Vera Tucker pick. even if he doesn't necessarily hit, I just like seeing that this coaching staff and this front office was trying to put an emphasis on protecting their franchise quarterback, their number 2 overall pick. Even if Veritucker doesn't hit, that was just a positive in my mind to see them immediately try to put an emphasis on that. So, and I'm not as high on Elijah Moore as you are, but I do like him a lot as a player. There's just similar to the quarterback room. There's a lot of extremely talented receivers in this class. So I'm not ready to anoint him as the best receiver in this class, but I do think he can be a very productive receiver. And I do think he's extremely talented. I do agree in that sense. But yeah, I mean, look, this team they're going to finish last in this division. To me, they do still have a few years to go, but the Adam Gase effect is real, and the fact that they got him out of the building was, like you said, addition by subtraction. And then, in my opinion, I think they did a great job with the head coaching hire as well. So that was another point for them, getting Robert Saleh in the building. Thank you for getting him out of the NFC West. That helps me out. Now I don't have to watch the camera just set on him the entire time that the 49ers play anymore. I don't have to watch the camera crew go over to him 95 times a game. So that's another win for me, having to watch a lot of 49ers games. But I do think he's going to be a great head coach, and I think he's done a great job building a staff of coordinators below him too that are going to set this team up for success as well. So, I mean, I do think the Jets are heading in the right direction overall.
Yeah. We will definitely see. That's the thing about quarterbacks is you never know. Like literally it's a roll of the dice. It's a crapshoot. But I just try to use the eye test, and he definitely passed my eye test. So Jared, we will finish our our AFC East prediction with you.
You know what's great about the NFL?
Nobody knows.
Bad teams have so much to watch and root for, and the Jets are one of those teams to me. Like they really are. Like they're not going to win a lot of games, but they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. Like a lot of fun to watch. And Zach Wilson is going to be good. And you guys were talking about the draft a little bit too. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is the best quarterback out of that draft. He went number 1. He's pretty, everyone pretty much is on board with that. Zach Wilson's going to be really good. I think Fields is better than Zach Wilson personally. I think Fields will be a better quarterback overall. Mac Jones is going to be the one that wins the most games, like with the Patriots. I think he will be overall the winner of that draft when it's all said and done. But man, going back to the Jets, like Corey Davis, I love Corey Davis. Absolutely love Corey Davis. I think I think he's gonna be an alpha. He's gonna be similar to Stephon Diggs for that team. He's gonna demand the ball, and Wilson's gonna pepper him all day long with passes. The defense is they're gonna give up a lot of points. But the offense is definitely going to at least keep them relevant. I think they win 4 games. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but the Jets have been really, really bad, and 4 games to them is a huge step up. I can see them, if they can build around that roster, I think they could easily in the next 2 years be a contender in that division. I don't think Buffalo's going away anytime soon, and I think New England's only going to get better because the way they draft every year. But I don't have faith in Miami at all. And I think the Jets could be a playoff team in the next few years.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I don't think New England's drafted particularly well in recent years, but but outside of that,
I feel like they did a pretty good job
this year. Yeah, I do believe they had a really good draft class this year. And then they actually spent money. Woo, bless me. I'm allergic to talking good about the New England Patriots. So I've got to stop while I'm ahead before I have an allergic reaction. So just to go over, we will all 3 give you our league or division standings and where we think each team finishes. I will start. I have the Buffalo Bills 1, New England 2, Miami 3, the New York Jets number 4.
I'm the same down the board.
The same, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, all 3 of us same picks, which means that if all 3 of us agree,
Miami Dolphins are about to win the division.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to happen. So yeah, we will all. That's the one thing about it's almost what I love about doing the NFL shows like this is and a lot of people they'll get bent out of shape whenever they get stuff wrong. That's why I like doing the NFL shows, is because what Jared touched on, for him it was, what's the one thing about the NFL is like even the bad teams are good to watch. Um, and that is true to an extent. To me, my favorite thing about the NFL is that any team can beat any team any week. It does not matter if you're the 1-15 Jaguars. It doesn't matter if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. Like it doesn't matter. You can be beat every week. And the thing about the new NFL season is there's so much roster turnover, and you're going to have these 4th and 5th round picks that emerge as studs that we don't even know their names, and everybody's wrong. There is not a single NFL person that does a show like we do, or like ESPN does, or Fox or whoever. There's not a single person that's going to be correct on stuff this season. Everybody's going to get stuff wrong. So granted, as the history shows, especially over the last year, this show has been the most accurate, but we're still wrong. That's why
football will spike itself, so we'll do that.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead, and that is our last division preview, boys, which means we are right in the thick of football season start. Like I said, less than a week to go. So we will be kicking off our playoff and NFL season prediction show. We will have that out to you before the season starts. I believe it's we're going to be recording that this Sunday like normal. And so if you're listening, just make sure that you give that a listen as well, especially if you want to find out all the awards, if you want to place bets. And then before the season starts as well, we have another special episode that we will be coming out to you before week 1. Like I said, our new co-host, Jared Holly, who joined us, big successful DFS guy. So just get ready for some great DFS and fantasy news. Of course, you can always count on fantasy for Redraft the Dynasty for me and Andrew, but we have our DFS expert in the house as well, or amateur expert, should I say. So we will we'll definitely be ready to look out for those shows as well. So we got some awesome stuff headed your way, but we're gonna go ahead and end the show here. Football's almost on us. We'll catch you guys next week. Andrew, take us away.
All right. So as always, first and foremost, thank you for listening. Thank you for making it this far. If you did, most of you are probably Jets fans that were just waiting around to hear your team's predictions if you did make it this far. But regardless, we appreciate everybody that took the time to click on the podcast and check it out. You can find us pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found: Apple, Google, Spotify, anything like that. And of course, if you want the visuals to go along with your audio listening pleasure, head over to YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel as well. If you do venture over there, if you're already there, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Whenever you do subscribe, click on that little bell. It's going to pop up so that you can get notified of the new shows, especially now that we're going to have DFS stuff rolling out. You don't want to miss out on a chance of making money. Don't leave money on the table. So hit the little bell. Make sure you're notified of the show whenever they get uploaded. We're about to start moving to 2 shows a week, so it's only going to be 2 times a week. Your phone's going to be dinging. We're not going to be blowing you up. But then while you're here, hit the like button for us. That helps us out a lot. And then drop in the comments, especially if you're an AFC East fan, let us know the player on your favorite team we overlooked, or, what your predictions for the division are, whatever the case may be, so that we can battle it out in the comments as well. So, like, subscribe, all that good shit. And then, of course, just thank you.
Yes, sir. So it's a pleasure seeing you guys again. We will see you guys next week with our NFL prediction show.